Right, I'm in the jungle. Back for part 4 of the e-bike, moped, motorcycle stroke project. I'm not going to say what I said last time because it makes me crack up every time I say it. Yeah, so quite a bit of progress on the old e-bike front. Mainly because I showed you the brakes before, didn't I? I showed you the tail light setup that I've got. But mainly the brakes. So the front brake, I've had to swap over to this brake caliper, which is called a Tektro Dorado. And the reason is, I was trying to explain this before in the other videos, because that is the only brake that actually comes as a complete set that allows you to actually have this lever which has a switch built in. So this particular lever is actually a requirement of the MSVA test, because it's got this little kind of ball end at the end of it. Love that ball end. So yeah, this lever has actually got a switch inside, which what you can do, it's designed for like e-brakes, like on e-bikes. So like when you pull the actual brake, what it will do is it will start the regen braking process, and then it slows down the back wheel. But in this case, what I've decided to do is actually wire it up so that it actually triggers a brake light. So you can see that there. So yeah, it was a bit of a pain having to sort of get rid of the Hope brake calipers that I had before, because they're really, really good. And they're like 4-pot brakes, and they're just really, really powerful. But the problem is you've got levers like this, which are just, actually they're pretty impractical for sort of my sort of riding, because they're designed for kind of off-road really. I think because you sort of have a couple of fingers or one finger on them, and actually if you're wearing sort of big gloves and stuff, you can't actually sort of get your hand around there. So it's a lot better to have like a full, more of a motorcycle style brake on there. So I've put this on, and it's working quite well. I think I might need to adjust it a little bit, but it seems to be working well with the old Hope brake discs that I'll get. I like these brake discs. You actually get different discs with this set. Right, so because these brakes are pretty difficult to get hold of, I think I mentioned it in another video, I actually contacted Taiwan, which is where they're made, trying to sort of work out if we could sort of become like a dealer of them and see what we can do with that, and then maybe sort of offer them through the shop. But I wanted to test them out first, obviously, because I didn't want to sort of go down a kind of a road of doing all that before I've actually kind of tested them. So I got in touch with Vector, which they helped me out with quite a few bits and pieces on this particular sort of setup that I'm doing. And yeah, Artis very nicely sent me the front brake. So that's the front brake on there. So check Vector e-bikes out, pretty cool. And then on the rear brake, because they didn't have the rear brake in stock, so I had to get in contact with, actually Lucas from Brinkhouse in the Netherlands sent me a message. And he basically just said, yeah, I've got the rear one, so I can send you one if you want. So yeah, there's his website there. So go check him out. It's got loads of really nice stuff on there. There's some really nice vintage bikes as well. And yeah, they just look really, really good. Quite tempted by that. So other things you might have noticed, this ridiculous mirror, which is on there at the moment, just for kind of testing. I'm just trying to figure out what you need, because on the test itself you can't have these mirrors on the outside of the handlebars, because I think they have to be a certain diameter. You might be able to do it, but I've yet to find an E-marked mirror which can go on the handlebars. So if anyone knows about that, that would be really useful. So yeah, it looks a bit ridiculous, but it's E-marked, and it should work pretty well. But I'm just at the moment trying to figure out like the angles and everything for it. It's a bit tricky. So again, if anyone's got any pointers for that, that would be good. Also, the bike is standing up on its own, and that is because I've put this side stand on. Now this was an absolute nightmare, because these particular stands, they're like designed for like a Kawasaki big off-road bike. So you end up with, when the stand comes, the bracket is like that big. So what I had to do was cut the top of it off, and then I actually got a plate made up, which is, it's pretty good on eBay. You can just basically go on eBay, and you can find, there's a couple of people doing it, like kind of laser cut metal, so you can just send them a sketch of what you want, and they'll they'll just basically make what you want to your spec. So I got them to do this, measured all the holes up, and got it lined up on the back. So what you can actually do is just clamp it onto the swing arm. There's like a little bit of an L kind of bracket around here which holds it straight, and then all I've done really is just made sure that those holes are very, very close to the swing arm, and then put the bolts through, and then when you tighten that up it just completely clamps it in, and that is not going anywhere. Now it is a bit of a monstrosity, but it works, and it's going to get it through what it needs to get through in that way. And it's so much better than the other stands that I've had, because the other ones I've had like a clamp here, and they just haven't been up to the weight to take the weight. This is, I weighed this the other day, and it's like 50 kilos, so I think it's kind of what you'd expect this sort of bike to be, and this sort of build, but this holds it perfectly, and this isn't budging anywhere. The only slight issue is you've got this wire going under here, you might actually sort of have a bit of trouble with something, you know, rubbing on there, but I think I'm probably just going to get some like foam padding and just pad that out. Next thing to do is to remove this caliper from the back. Now it's a bit of a pain because you've got to take this off. This hose runs through, goes into the bike frame itself, and then comes out up here. So there's no other way to do that unless you have the hose running down the outside, which I don't want to do. There's no other way of doing that without bleeding the brakes, which I've not actually done before. So yeah, that'll be interesting. So once that's done, and then obviously you'll have the left lever for the rear brake, and that will obviously trigger that as well. That was quite interesting because Lucas said to me that you want to be careful if you run the brake light through those brake switch levers, because they're quite small switches. And then he said, oh yeah, because I burnt out one of the switches. And I was thinking, that sounds unusual. Like if you're using LED lights, they take, you know, hardly any current at all, so it'd probably be fine. And I said to him, were you using like normal light bulbs, like a incandescent light bulb? Because they obviously take quite a bit of current. And he said, I don't think he could remember. But anyway, basically, I've wired it up, and I can confirm that they're absolutely 100% fine. I've left this, you know, depressed for quite a long time, just to sort of test it out, and obviously had all the other lights on there as well, and there's no issues. The wires actually are fairly beefy. This is like, looks a little bit like doorbell wire, so it's fairly good gauge. This is the rear brake, and it actually came with not as much cable as the front brake, but yeah, that should be fine. Just going to extend those wires anyway, and that's the rear caliper. Not bad. I mean, with the rear brake, you don't really need something crazy anyway, because A, the bike's light and you don't want the back wheel to lock up, and also you've got regen braking, so you don't actually need some sort of crazy brake. You just need something that can just, like, you know, stop the back of the bike. So it's looking good. It's looking good, but you know, there's still a few bits and pieces to do. It's like niggly little things. Oh yeah, got a horn on here as well, so you can see that just round here. Ugly, horrible thing. I was really kind of not excited at all at like doing that, but it's something that you've got to do, and it's wired up obviously to the proper switch on there. So it's blimmin' loud, that thing. It's ridiculous. Now the other bit which I'm thinking about, which is kind of driving me nuts a little bit, is the tyres, because these are Duro tyres which came with the wheels when I got the wheels from China. They came with these tyres on. First thing I thought was, oh, it's like a Chinese tyre or something like that. I've had this thing on the quad bike where the tyres that came with it are just completely unmarked, and they're just, I don't know what they are, they're just random things. But these tyres have not got any E marking on them. They've got a little dot mark, I don't know if you can see that. Now, in the guide for the MSVA, it says that tyres should have, you know, an approval marking, and it says like dot, E marked obviously, and then there's a bunch of others. So I'm not really sure, you know, if they're okay. Hope so, because I don't have to really change them, because it's a bit annoying. Again, if anyone knows about that, that would be interesting. But they're not bad. and actually looking at a lot of the different tyres and things like this of this size online, there isn't a massive amount of choice, because generally tyres in this size are actually for vintage bikes. So you're looking at like tread patterns that are very, very similar to this. As long as they work, for me, as long as they work, it's fine. As long as they don't like slide off the road, it's absolutely fine. So slowly putting together pieces of the puzzle, it's kind of getting there. But anyway, I'm going to head to the office now. Oh, one major thing that I forgot to mention actually. VIN number. It's marked down here. So this was absolutely fine. They just basically stamped it. I was a bit worried about the paint coming off on there, but absolutely fine. So yeah, that's where to put it. I've still got the plate somewhere. I might put it, as I mentioned before, I might stick it out there somewhere, but I don't know, seems alright. Anyway, going to the office now.